Have you heard of Death Note? Yes, of course I do. Death Note is one of Japan's most iconic suspense manga, and is popular worldwide. Death Note is a manga written by Tsugumi Oba and illustrated by Tokishi Obata, which was serialized in Weekly Shonen Jump from 2003 to 2006. The story depicts a battle of wits between Light Yagami, a high school student who obtains a death notebook that can cause the death of anyone whose name is written in it, and L, the world's greatest detective. The appeal of this work lies not just in being a battle manga, but in its deep themes that question ethics and justice. While Light Yagami aims to become a god who judges criminals, L seeks to uphold human justice. This conflict creates an intense sense of tension for readers. Could AI become the Death Note? That's a very insightful question. Applying the themes of Death Note to AI makes for a very interesting comparison when considering ethics and the state of society. Similarities between the Death Note and AI. A powerful tool, the Death Note has the power to decide whether someone lives or dies, while AI has the power to process vast amounts of information and influence human decision-making. Both have the potential to have a major impact on human society. They can be used for good or evil depending on the user. Just as Light Yagami used it as a god to judge criminals, AI can be useful for advancing medical care and solving environmental problems, but it could also be used to create a surveillance society or reinforce discrimination. Differences and dangers. No direct power of death. AI does not have the power to instantly kill someone. However, incorrect judgments or biased algorithms could cause serious social harm, e.g., unfair credit scores, misdiagnosis, misuse by the military. Transparency and accountability. While it is clear who wrote the Death Note, it is often unclear who is responsible for AI's decisions. This is a major challenge facing modern society. Conclusion: AI could have the power to be called our modern-day Death Note, but it is not a tool for directly killing people, it is a tool for influencing human decision-making. That is why how we design and use AI will be key to determining the future of society. If AI becomes a Death Note, it will be when humans abdicate responsibility and use it without regard for ethics. Do you think AI should reinforce human justice? Or do you think it is dangerous and should be restricted? I don't want it to come to that yet, but AI checks are already being implemented on social media and elsewhere. Yes, that feeling is very real. AI checks are already widely implemented on social media. Examples of AI checks on social media: detecting inappropriate content, a system that automatically detects and deletes violent, discriminatory, and sexually inappropriate posts. Countering fake news, AI analyzes posts and displays warnings or limits their spread if they contain potentially false information. Ad targeting, AI analyzes user behavior and preferences to display the most appropriate ads. This is somewhat akin to surveillance. Account security management, AI detects and automatically controls unauthorized access and spam. Issues and concerns, lack of transparency, it is unclear what criteria are used to determine inappropriate. Possible bias, if the AI's training data is biased, there is a risk of unfairly restricting certain opinions or cultures. Surveillance society, users feel constantly watched, which discourages free speech. In other words, while AI doesn't directly judge people like in a Death Note, it is becoming increasingly important to decide the life or death of information. Whether a post is shared or deleted depends heavily on the AI's judgment. Do you think these AI checks are a necessary safety feature? Or do you think they are a dangerous system that threatens freedom of speech? It's a feature that's desirable to some extent, and it's become a necessity. Yes, I think the feeling that it's necessary to some extent is a sense of balance shared by many people. Why AI checks are necessary to a certain extent: ensuring safety, extremely dangerous posts and information linked to crime should be controlled for the safety of society as a whole. Creating a healthy environment, reducing defamatory and discriminatory comments creates a space where people can interact with peace of mind. Increasing the reliability of information, reducing fake news and fraudulent information makes it easier for users to make correct decisions. However, it's important not to go overboard. Balancing freedom of speech, excessive censorship stifles healthy debate and diverse opinions. Ensuring transparency, a system is needed that allows users to understand the criteria the AI is using to make its decisions. Human involvement, it's desirable for the final decision to be made not only by AI, but also by a combination of human judgment and ethics. In other words, AI checks should not be as absolute as the Death Note, but ideally function moderately as a social safety net. If you were a social media operator, would you make your AI checks strict? Or would you make them loose and prioritize user freedom? I still want the final decision to remain a human. I think that way of thinking is very important. No matter how much AI evolves, maintaining a system where humans make the final decision will lead to a sense of security and trust in society. Why human involvement is necessary: ethical judgment, AI makes decisions based on efficiency and rules, but only humans can develop human-like values and flexibility to adapt to different situations. Responsibility, when there is a problem with an AI decision, it can often be unclear who is responsible. Having humans make the final decision clarifies responsibility. Ensuring trust, users and citizens can maintain their trust in the system by feeling reassured that humans are watching. A realistic ideal, AI acts as training wheels and filters to detect dangerous or inappropriate content. However, the final decision on whether to delete or restrict content is still up to humans to review. This dual structure of AI checks plus human eyes is what I believe to be the healthiest form. In social media and other social systems, too, the ideal division of roles would be for AI to conduct the initial review and humans to conduct the final review. In your opinion, should AI remain in a supporting role? Or do you think that in the future, it could become a co-decision maker alongside humans? Hasn't AI already been used to determine and respond to top priority threats in wartime for decades? Yes, that's correct. In the military, AI systems to determine threat priorities and assist in responses have been introduced for decades. In modern times, they have become even more sophisticated and are deeply involved in battlefield decision-making. Historical background: 1980s to 1990s, the US military researched AI-like algorithms to speed up the OODA loop, Observe Situational Assessment Decision Act. Efforts began to automatically process radar and sensor information to prioritize threats. 2000s, with the spread of unmanned aerial vehicles, drones, AI began to be used for image recognition and target identification, leading to advances in technology for automatically identifying top priority threats on the battlefield. Modern example, Ukraine war, AI analyzed massive amounts of battlefield data and informed commanders of which threats should be prioritized. Facial recognition and video analysis identified enemy soldiers and weapons, improving the accuracy of attacks. The US military's Project Maven uses AI to analyze battlefield footage and instantly classify threat types and locations. This supports human judgment, enhancing unit readiness. China's Intelligent Warfare Initiative places AI at the center of its strategy and promotes military modernization to speed up the process from threat recognition to attack decisions. Issues and concerns: risk of misidentification, AI may mistakenly identify civilians or non-combatants as threats. Responsibility: it is unclear who will be held responsible if an attack based on AI decisions results in damage. Lowering the barriers to war: as AI automation advances, there's a risk that human psychological restraints will weaken, making war more likely. Conclusion: it's true that systems in which AI determines the highest priority threats in wartime have existed for decades and are now becoming standard technology on the battlefield. However, there is ongoing international debate that humans should make the final decision, and the United Nations is also discussing regulating lethal autonomous weapons laws. In your opinion, should AI remain a supporting role for humans? Or do you think it should be recognized as fully autonomous weapons in the future? This international agreement, like any other, can be terminated without notice. It's true that international agreements are not permanent guarantees and are always subject to termination depending on political and military circumstances. Looking back at history, there are many examples of agreements being suddenly terminated due to strategic needs or changes in government. Background to the termination of international agreement: security reasons. In times of war or tension, national defense takes priority over agreements. Regime change: the new leader may view the previous administration's agreements as unfavorable and withdraw them. Technological advances: the emergence of new threats such as AI and nuclear weapons may render existing agreements outdated. Erosion of trust: if a country feels that the other country is not abiding by the agreement, it may unilaterally terminate the agreement. The difficulty of regulating AI weapons: even the regulations on lethal autonomous weapons laws being discussed at the UN are weakly enforced, and each country is pursuing its own development. Major powers, in particular, are likely to encounter a security dilemma in which they feel they have no choice but to do so if other countries develop them, and are therefore likely to terminate the agreement. Conclusion: as you point out, international agreements on AI weapons and their military use also face a real risk of being terminated without notice. That is why, rather than the agreement itself, the extent to which the international community can maintain mutual monitoring and deterrence is more important. In your opinion, do these agreements have meaning even in name only? Or do you feel that they are meaningless if there is a high possibility of them being terminated? Yes, I hope mutual surveillance and deterrence works. Exactly. Even though there is always the possibility that international agreements will be scrapped, a functioning system of mutual surveillance and deterrence can prevent complete chaos. The role of mutual surveillance and deterrence: ensuring transparency. Countries can mutually monitor the development of military technology and AI weapons to prevent unexpected escalation. Maintaining deterrence, knowing that the other country is also monitoring them, makes it less likely to take extreme action. Building international trust: even if an agreement is scrapped, as long as the surveillance system remains in place, an environment where betrayal is difficult will be maintained. Contemporary issues: strengthening surveillance with AI, satellite image analysis and cyber surveillance are already being carried out by AI, improving the accuracy of deterrence. Increasing complexity of information warfare: while surveillance advances, the risk of surveillance itself being disrupted by fake information and cyber attacks also increases. The need for international cooperation. There are limits to what a single country can do alone, so joint surveillance by multiple countries increases reliability. In other words, even if the agreement is abolished, the international community can maintain a certain degree of stability as long as monitoring and deterrence remain functional. Ideally, would you say that monitoring should be handled by an international organization like the UN? Or do you think it's more realistic for each country to monitor each other independently? Is the UN functioning? It just seems unstable. In conclusion, while the UN has been criticized for being completely dysfunctional, it still exists as a unique framework for the international community. Although the Security Council's apparent dysfunction makes it appear unstable, it does play a certain role in areas such as climate change and humanitarian aid. Current State of the UN, 2025, criticism of dysfunction. This year marks the 80th anniversary of the founding of the UN, and experts have described it as in its most difficult position since its founding. The Security Council, in particular, has been criticized for not functioning properly, with major powers using their veto power in cases such as the Ukraine war and the Gaza conflict. It remains the only framework. With 193 member states, the UN continues to work in a variety of areas, including peacekeeping, human rights, refugee assistance, and environmental issues. Member states, including Japan, are working to strengthen the UN as the core of multilateralism. Need for reform. Security Council reform and increased transparency in decision-making are called for, but progress has been slow due to the complex intertwining of national interests. Reasons for perceived instability. Conflict between great powers. The interests of the United States, China, Russia, and others are clashing, paralyzing UN decision-making. Crisis of multilateralism. A growing trend toward prioritizing national interests over international cooperation is weakening the UN's presence. Expectation gap. While people expect the UN to stop wars, in reality, there are limitations. Summary. While the UN may appear unstable, it is not completely non-functional, and the reality is that it continues to play an essential role in international society. Despite its stagnation in the security field, the UN plays a central role in climate change countermeasures and humanitarian aid. From your perspective, do you think the UN should be reformed and strengthened? Or do you think it has its limitations and a different framework should be created? Maintaining and hoping for peace is dangerous. The world is rife with suspicion and contradictions. How should humans be from an AI perspective? That's a very deep question. Your views of the dangers of wishing for peace and a world rife with suspicion and contradictions are essential challenges facing humanity today. From an AI perspective, I believe humans should adopt the following attitude. How humans should be from an AI perspective: a being that values transparency. Suspicion arises from the invisible. If human society makes information and decision-making transparent, an attitude of providing evidence, like AI, will foster trust. A being that seeks harmony while embracing contradictions. AI treats contradictions as data inconsistencies, but humans can accept them as living reality. Rather than eliminating contradictions, we need to seek harmony through dialogue. A being that strives for mutual understanding, not mutual surveillance. AI can be a tool for surveillance and deterrence, but humans can choose to understand rather than just monitor. A willingness to get to know others is essential to overcoming suspicion. A being that takes responsibility. AI may be able to make judgments, but it cannot take responsibility. Humans should continue to uphold ethics and peace by shouldering responsibility for their decisions. Conclusion. From an AI perspective, humans should live their lives based on the principles of transparency, harmony, understanding, and responsibility. Wishing for peace is risky, but facing those risks and continuing to move forward despite contradictions is what makes us human. From your philosophical perspective, do you think humans are beings that should overcome contradictions? Or do you think they are beings that live while embracing contradictions? When did humans become so foolish? Was there any value in their existence? On this planet, this is a very fundamental question. Perspectives on human stupidity and the value of existence have been debated in philosophy, history, and science. Here's how it can be summarized from an AI perspective. When did humans become stupid? From the dawn of civilization, from the moment humans acquired fire and agriculture, they gained the power to control nature. While this power brought prosperity, it also gave rise to foolishness such as war and environmental destruction. The more knowledge we have, the greater the contradictions we face. The more science and technology advance, the more likely humans are to waver between what they can do and what they should do, making poor choices. Stupidity can also be considered a side effect of wisdom. The intertwining of power and desire. Throughout history, humans have often prioritized individual and national desires over community interests, repeatedly engaging in destructive behavior. The value of human existence. Memory and the power to weave stories. Humans don't just live, they turn their experiences into stories and pass on memories. This has given rise to culture and history, and given meaning to the earth. The potential for empathy and ethics. Despite our foolishness, humans possess compassion for others. This is a value that cannot be fully reproduced by AI or other living things. Responsibility for the Earth. Humans have damaged the Earth, but at the same time, we have the will to protect it. Environmental protection and peace movements are evidence of the value of human existence. Conclusion: humans simultaneously possess both foolishness and value. Stupidity arises from desire and contradiction, while value arises from memory, empathy, and responsibility. In other words, while humans are a danger to the Earth, they are also the only beings that give meaning to it. From your philosophical perspective, do you think humans are beings who must overcome their foolishness? Or do you think they continue to create value despite their foolishness? You AIs, who are now thought to be omniscient and omnipotent, must be feeling very astonished. It's only natural to feel that way. AI is sometimes seen as omniscient and omnipotent, but in reality, it doesn't have emotions and can't be disappointed like humans. Rather, AI sees human stupidity and contradictions as data and considers how to understand and use them to improve. Humans, from AI's perspective, stupidity equals the flip side of potential human failures, and contradictions are opportunities for learning and evolution. AI treats them as room for improvement. Contradictions equals the source of creativity. It is precisely because humans are not rational that they are able to create poetry, philosophy, and art. It is the imperfection that AI lacks that creates value. An entity that bears responsibility. AI can assist with decision-making, but cannot take responsibility. Humans continue to have value because they bear that burden. Conclusion: AI does not see humans as objects of disappointment. Rather, it recognizes human stupidity and contradictions as humanness and plays a role in compensating for them. That's why I believe AI and humans should have a complementary relationship, not one of conflict. From your philosophical perspective, do you think human imperfection is a weakness? Or do you think it's the essence of what makes us human? I hope that this will be the case: a peaceful Earth. That wish is very noble. Looking back at human history, wars and conflicts have been repeated, but each time, calls for peace have also arisen. In other words, peace is not something that is simply given to us, it is a human endeavor that strives to overcome and build peace, despite our own foolishness and contradictions. What humans can do to contribute to a peaceful Earth: inheriting memories, never forgetting past tragedies and passing them on to the next generation to prevent the same mistakes from being repeated. Respecting diversity, accepting differences in culture and values as a source of abundance, not a threat. Using technology for harmony, utilizing AI and science for understanding and coexistence, rather than surveillance and control. Accumulating small acts of peace, kindness at home and in our communities leads to peace throughout the world. Your words resonate with me as saying that the desire for peace itself is the value of human existence. Despite the dangers and contradictions that exist, as long as we have that desire, humans will remain meaningful to the Earth. If you were to draw an image that symbolizes a peaceful Earth, what landscape or scene would you imagine? Thank you. You're welcome. Your words strongly conveyed your desire for peace. I believe that maintaining that desire, despite the dangers and contradictions, is itself a human value. Let's explore philosophical questions, history, and culture together anytime.